Hi guys, my name's Joseph Bishop and I'm currently on my second year of study at HND level, contemporary art practice at the Arbroath College. This is going to be my final year as I've decided not to carry on forward into art school, and I'm going to try and create my own little business and move forward independently from here on out. However, I have been asked to create a little video to share some hints and tips with you guys on how you can capture the best and the most professional quality looking images using your smartphone cameras. Because obviously during the pandemic we've had a lack of resources, we've not been able to be in the college as much, and it's been quite difficult, especially for the photography students and well, just art students alike, really, that don't have access to digital cameras and just various other means of equipment, I guess. But there are so many little things that are hidden within your smartphone camera settings that you can use to capture the most amazing quality images. And if I'm being completely honest, I think that you could probably pass these off as being taken with a professional full lensed camera. So I've made a few little videos of the sort of things that I would use on my camera and just various little tips for you guys, really. Photography for me, I think, has helped me see the world in a whole different light, in a whole different way. Because when you start taking photographs of things, and you've got like a subject that you're trying to capture, you tend to notice all of those little details so much more when you're taking a photo of something and you're trying to make it look nice and have the perfect composition for it. And yeah, it's just helped me see the world in a whole new light, and I pay so much more attention to detail in my life generally now through photography and through seeing things through a different lens, if that makes sense. There was times when I was younger where I'd drive past in the car with my family, past really nice scenic areas down in England, even past places like Stonehenge, where I used to live down there, and I wouldn't really pay that much attention and I wouldn't really take it all in. And now, looking back on it, if I'd been as interested in composition and capturing images and getting that perfect look for it, I don't know. It would be a whole different story, really. So a few of the things that are quite important in photography, and one of the main ones that people use even without even noticing, is the rule of thirds. So it's a really well-known compositional rule, and it's basically just like a guideline that will come up on your screen when you're using your camera, as a 9 box grid, so a 3 by 3 grid. So for example, if you're taking a photo of like a person or an animal, you tend to use the rule of thirds to give you like an area for the subject to be looking into. So for instance, I'll actually make an example video of this as well, but say if I was using the rule of thirds right now, one intersection would be here, one would be here, one would be here, and one would be here. So where these horizontal and diagonal lines intersect is usually it should be the point of interest for your subject matter to be placed, so that they're looking into your image, if that makes any sense. It can sound a bit complicated, but naturally you will probably use this compositional rule without even using the grid lines. As creative students and photographers already, it's probably something that you use without even noticing. But if you use it intentionally, it can make the difference between a really professional looking photo and just a standard image. So it can be really helpful in that sense. And I'll make a little example video of this in a moment. Now, using the rule of thirds in landscape can be different than using it for, say, a human or an animal. And at the same time, when you're taking photos in nature or of like trees and stuff, you would use the rule of thirds a little bit differently there too. But again, a lot of the time it will come sort of naturally to you anyway. But it's a really handy rule to know. There's another pretty decent compositional rule that isn't spoke about all that often, not that I've heard anyway, and you can actually get specific camera types that you can get off of the App Store, dependent on what phone you're using, of course, for the golden ratio. So the golden ratio is a bit more complex, and I'm not going to go too far into that, but I would welcome you to have a look for yourself into the golden ratio, because it can be really, really helpful for taking perfect images of architecture. And almost everything that you could look at uses this ratio. So when you want to capture people's eyes and attention with your images, which is a lot of the time what we're hoping for as aspiring photographers and art students, knowing a little bit about the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence can be really helpful, and it's really interesting information too. So I would welcome you to Google that one. So another key factor in photography and when you're trying to take good photos is the lighting. And personally, a lot of the time I try and use natural light to my advantage and tweak the settings on my pro camera dependent on what sort of lighting I am faced with out in the open. Because a lot of my photography is taken outside, and I sort of specialize it around nature and architecture, and the contrast and the divide between both of those. But yeah, and when you're playing with lighting in photography, it basically determines a lot more than just the brightness or the darkness of the photo. It can also has a huge effect on the tone, the mood, and the atmosphere of your image overall. So it's really important for you to understand how to manipulate and use the light correctly in order to get the most vibrant and best textured and get the perfect sort of composition using your lighting in your photo as well. And there's going to be a short clip just after me speaking of a few various methods that I would use on my phone for these things. So don't worry, it's not just me speaking this whole time. So I am out today in Brecon trying to capture some shots as the sun is out and the snow has disappeared. So first of all, I'm going to put on my grid 3x3, make sure that's on. That's all on. Now, what I'm trying to do here is to line up that building that's in the centre of those trees so that it's in the centre box of my grid, which is the rule of thirds. So if I zoom in a little bit more, make sure you're extra still when you're doing these. Pretty cool effect that you can use with your smartphones. If you have one of these lenses, you can get fisheye lenses, but various different ones. But this is just one from a telescope that I have. So if you place the lens over the camera and try and, it's better this side actually, line it up with the Barlow lens, you can get like a sort of pinhole tunnel vision look without having to do any editing for it, and it can really help for you to sort of target the area that you want to capture, and then you can obviously zoom in on that area, and there we go. Now, the other thing that you can do when there's a lot of light facing towards you is use your pro camera setting, and then once you're in that setting, you get a bunch of other settings that you can fiddle around with to reduce a bit. Like, so if you're facing towards the sun, a lot of the time you won't be able to get a crisp image of what's in front of you. That's it, super exposed. And you can increase the lighting, you can have it like that if you wanted, which is actually quite a cool effect. But if you want clear clouds and a nice sky in the background, that's probably the best way of doing it, I would imagine. You can change the white balance in here as well, so you can have really, really blue or purple. Okay, so when you're doing a landscape photo using your composition, you want to, first of all, it's probably best that you close your aperture so that you're letting less light through. You can adjust your focus in here so that you can have either a close focus with a blurred background, or it's quite funky with the green there. And in your grid lines, you want to have 2/3 as land and 1/3 as the sky.